On this episode, check out another 3 months of progress on the Cumberland and Ohio Valley Railroad. Welcome back, everybody. It's Sunday, March 7th, 2021. And once again, 3 months have gone by since my last vlog. So we have a lot to cover in this episode. So I want to show you what I've done in the months of December, January, and February. And we're going to start over in this corner where we've kind of been starting for the last couple of episodes. And if you'll recall, last time I had pretty much gotten up to around this point where the mine is. But as you can see below, we have water that's been added. All of the scenery along the riverbank and behind the bridge is complete. The bridge is in permanently. And the massive Tubbins Lumber Company has been finished, as well as the Heckinger Bag and Burlap Company there on the bottom. So a pretty remarkable amount of work for 3 months' time. And I want to take a look at each of the little areas with you specifically. And I got a little bit of a surprise at the end of the video to share with you. So let's talk a little bit about the scenery itself in this area. Pretty much used the same exact methods that I've been using. You'll recall that this area actually was all hard shell last time I filmed it. And I used the same polyfiber covered with different Woodland Scenics coarse and just the regular ground turfs. But one thing that I did different this time is used a product by Cripplebush Valley Models, and it's these large rock faces. There's one there, another large one there, as well as in the back there, a little bit smaller. But these are actually rubber castings. They are not molds for plaster. They're actually rubber, and they're very flexible, very easy to work with. There's some more down on this end. That large one is a fourth one, and then there's a fifth one down there on the end. These actually came in a tan color. So I painted and weathered those with an airbrush once they were in place. Now the ones on the riverbank are plaster. Those I used some of my larger molds, and once they were cast, I just broke them into small irregular pieces and randomly mixed and matched different parts from different castings to make some unique little outcroppings there. But you'll notice how well the rubber rocks match the colors and the contours of the plaster ones. In fact, it's really hard to tell the difference. Most people wouldn't even know that rock in the back was rubber unless I just told them. And then for the river itself, I ended up using an entire, well, it was a half a gallon of Envirotex to pour all of the water under the bridge as well as around the curve. Let's see if I can get on it there. Kind of see it goes all the way around to the bridge there. So luckily I was able to get all of that in one pour. And it was a little touch and go there at the end because I wasn't sure I was going to have enough to finish. But luckily I didn't need it to be that deep. And it just so happened that I had literally just enough to do this area. So I added some acrylic paint, just some green craft acrylic paint. I think they were the apple barrel paints you can get at Walmart. To give it a little bit of green color, I painted the plywood base black first, made sure it was completely sealed before I poured anything. But it's a little on the green side. It probably is a tad greener than I would have liked, but it is reflecting a whole lot of greenery, as you can see, along the riverbank. So I'm happy with it. I would not, definitely would not redo it to try to get a better result. But I do like the high gloss finish and the reflection that you see of the bridge, especially when a train goes over it. So all of the track behind there is ballasted as well. Basically, this area is totally complete. I may add a few more trees here and there, but Graves is pretty much now done, and I'm ready to move on to something else. But it all blends very well as you go around to the other side of the room here. So let me show you the lumber company, because I think it turned out extremely well. And we'll let me reposition the camera and we'll take a closer look at it. So this is my H.B. Tubbins Lumber Company. It's about 10 feet long from end to end. And the one thing that really sets this apart from the other structures that I've built so far is these are just basic plastic kits from Walthers. There's no Craftsman kits anywhere in this complex. They're just standard plastic kits. But I hope this demonstrates that plastic kits with the right weathering and the details added can really be brought up to the standards of some of the more expensive Craftsman kits. So most of these came from Walthers' lumber mill series that they came out with. But there are two buildings here on the far end that we'll take a little closer look at that were not from Walthers. So these two buildings against the backdrop were not Walthers. The one on the left, the white one, started as a pike stuff kit, and I modeled it as a kiln, drying kiln, based on prototype photos that I found online. And then the open air shed in the back started out as a Cox kit, sort of a Tyco quality kit that was probably manufactured back in the 70s or 80s. But I found a couple of them on eBay fairly inexpensive, and I thought I might be able to do something with that. And sure enough, I closed in the back and the sides and did a little bit of structural work on it, and I think it actually turned out very nice. It came with the stacks of lumber that are in the back. The ones in the foreground there are actually chooch. And I think there's a American Model Builders laser cut wood on the far end there. But they blend in really nice. I will say this entire area where the concrete is, actually the whole complex, I built on gator foam at the workbench and then transferred it and put it in place once it was built. It just made doing all the detail work and everything so much easier to have it on the workbench. And honestly, I'll probably do most of my structures the same way, build them on gator foam and then just mount them once they're done. This loading shed for the boxcars is really 1.5 sheds that came with the Walthers planing shed kit. But I did sort of kit bash the platform itself from several Pike Stuff kits. And the other part of the planing mill is this building right here. And notice all the piping that I added to go from the sawdust collector to the loader. And the main building had a loading shed that came out perpendicular to these sidewalls, and that's what's connecting the two buildings there with the transfer tables. And one neat little thing I did was, didn't have room for a sawdust burner, so I found a photo of one online, printed it, mounted it on foam board, and then to make it look a little more 3D, the pipe that's connecting the building is actually a piece of styrene rod, and it gives a little more of a 3D effect. You notice the stacks of lumber there also. Let me get the camera a little bit lower and I'll show you a little bit more I did with the photo backdrop. So if you look between the buildings as I pan across here, you'll see that I printed off images of stacked lumber, and these were just glued directly to the backdrop with spray adhesive. But they definitely give a lot of depth to the scene in a fairly narrow shelf. So let's go a little to the west and let's take a look at the actual log loading area of the mill. So this end of the mill I was especially pleased with because it was a challenge to match the foreground stacks of logs with the background stacks of logs. And those came from some other images that I was able to find on the internet and print off. You notice the log there going through the debarking machine has cleaned off one side compared to the other side that's still yet to travel all the way through there. All of the debris in the foreground I made from literally getting just sort of decaying pine branches out of the yard. We have about 5 acres, so there's no shortage of little twigs on the ground. And basically put them in a blender, chipped the bark off and put it in a blender and pulverized it and made the ground cover. It's a little hard to see, but there's some guy wires for those stacks that's easy line. You kind of see it a little bit there. The stacked wood here actually is a casting, a resin casting that Walthers also used to have in production. And this little part of the backdrop, it blended very nicely. I like the way that the stacks of wood are situated with the foreground scene. And it gives a plausible way for cars to come in and out of this complex because there's no way to drive into it from the front, from the aisle side. And then this sawdust loader, you'll notice that this overhead pipe was just made with drinking straws. And then I scratch built the posts to hold it up. But I think it turned out very well. And it connects right there. One thing you may have noticed as I've shown you this complex is there's a lot of light poles. And one thing I haven't shown you yet is the lights in this complex actually work. So let me turn the lights, room lights off, and I'll show you what it looks like at night. And here is the complex at night. And I am so excited about starting night operations on the layout. And I tell you, one of the standards that I set for myself with this layout from the very inception was that all structures would have interior lighting. And that really came about because I was so enamored with all of the lighting that I did on the New Orleans Union Passenger Terminal on the old layout. And I really regretted that I had never put lights in all of the other buildings, especially on the lower level. So I was determined not to make that mistake again on this layout. But all of these light poles that you see and the gooseneck lamps on the signs are all part of the new Woodland Scenics Just Plug system. And I am just totally sold on it. It is so easy to install. Yes, it's a little pricey, but the fact that you can individually dim the lights to what's pleasing to your eye to get the effects you want and the ease of installation, I'm planning on using it throughout the entire layout. There are a couple of buildings on this scene that are just using regular incandescent grain of wheat bulbs. And that's because I had already used those prior to getting the Just Plug system. But they're in the loading shed there with the box cars and these two main buildings, the planing shed, the little breezeway that connects them, and the main sawmill, all use regular grain of wheat bulbs. But everything else is Just Plug. And I'm going to show you one other building that I've done, the Heckinger building. It uses the Just Plug bulbs and system exclusively. So let's take a quick look at that building as well, and I'll show you the night effects on it. So in addition to everything else you've seen over the past 3 months, I also built this Craftsman kit. This is my J.J. Heckinger Bag and Burlap Company. Started out as a Sierra West Whitney and Bent kit. One of the things I added was this elevated walkway across the front here on the right-hand side. There are a couple of doors that were for the second floor that were just sort of sticking out of the wall. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, so I added this walkway to sort of have access to those doorways. And then to make the complex a little bit larger, I added this Foss scale kit, which is the Quinn Elbow Duct and Vent Company, and created this little connecting wedge-shaped building right here to connect the two. But I think they really look nice together and blend well together. And let me show you the other end of the building. So you notice I haven't finished the scenery in this area, and that's because I have to recut this fascia piece right here to match the contours of the foam. And the reason I haven't done that yet is I need this piece to curve to meet the trestle down at the end here, right about there. This piece is going to come off and curve out into here, and that'll give me a little more room. Once I get that piece cut, then I can do a little more retaining wall work and scenery in this area. But I like the way it sort of overlooks the riverbank there. But you'll notice that I put a billboard on the top. The actual South River Model Works kit had a kind of a tar paper lean-to that goes in that area, but what I got was one of the Just Plug billboards, which have the lights, and then created my own graphic to go over it. And you'll see in a second when I turn the lights off, it's pretty impressive to see that billboard lit. But I like this elevation of the building. I use bar mill shingles, asphalt shingles for the roof that didn't come with it. And down at the very end there is going to be a little hot dog stand with a depot next to it. And that will be added once this fascia piece is curved out, and I'll have a little more room for the base of those buildings. But let me show you what this one looks like with the lights off. So as I mentioned earlier, Hechinger is 100% illuminated with Woodland Scenics Just Plug components. And by far, the crowning jewel is the billboard, as it just looks so neat, lit up with those 3 tiny little lights. And it really worked out perfect that that billboard fit that rooftop right there, almost like it was made for it. But if I sort of pan out here, you can get an idea of what the lumber mill looks like with the bag and burlap company underneath. It's pretty cool. I can't wait for us to be able to actually switch cars and stuff with the lights out for night operations. I think that's gonna just add a whole new challenge and neat twist to the whole thing. But again, I really can't recommend highly enough the Woodland Scenic system. It's if you can handle the price tag on it, to me it's absolutely worth the cost. So let me get the lights back on. I want to show you one last thing that I'm working on as I move forward, and then we'll wrap things up. So what's my next project? Well, if we pan around this way, you'll see what I'm currently working on. Yep, the giant double curved trestle that's going to go all the way across this curve here. So I've already got what I sort of call the west end slope already done. But as you can see, it has so far around 2,000 nut bolt washer castings that are titchy. I imagine I'm going to need about 10,000 by the time it's over with. But that'll be the next thing, and the scenery that'll go from this upper track by the lumber mill down. So this will be a massive gorge, lots of rocks, rock castings, probably some more rubber rocks combined with it. And you can see how the fascia is going to come out and then follow this slope, follow this contour down. But I think this is going to be, well, it will be the focal point of the entire layout. And I think it will basically be this layout's version of the New Orleans station for the old layout. And I'm standing right by the door. So the first thing visitors will see when they walk in the building is this massive trestle. So I think it'll definitely make a strong statement to walk in and see that as the very first thing. So I'll be working on this for probably another 2 or 3 months. This is a major undertaking. Absolutely the largest single project of the entire layout as well. So this one is will be coming pretty soon and is not for the faint of heart. So I'll be excited to share with you my progress on this on the next vlog. So until then, if you enjoyed your visit, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe so you can be notified of updates when I put new content. Hopefully this next one won't be 3 months. We'll just, we'll have to see how things work out. But I'm not biting off nearly as much as far as overall square footage of layout with this. So it's pretty much just continuing the building of the trestle. So maybe another month, I'll let you see how far I've gotten at that point. We're headed on vacation Thursday for 10 days. So there'll be a little bit of a gap in time, but still in a month's time, I ought to have a good chunk done. So until then, I thank you for visiting with me today. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time. Take care, everyone. Be safe. See you soon.